Okay, yesterday we heard from Dana Ringelmann at Indiegogo that crowdfunding means the end of capitalism and gatekeepers as we know it. We posted that online last night too and got an incredible amount of hits. That is definitely a statement that gets people's attention. She was obviously talking about the power of the crowd. Well, today we'd like to build upon the notion that crowdfunding is changing not just the way projects are financed, but also the way users of the web engage with each other. Passive users are no more. The people who see the web as an environment to actively participate in projects and engage with others, they are becoming the new norm. So what are the lessons for companies that want to take advantage of this trend? Well, we've assembled a panel today to peer into the cloud and the crowd for us. So please give a warm welcome to our panelists. Hey, take a seat. Good morning. Good morning. Our man from Australia. Hi. Our lady from the US. All right, take a seat. So let's go through the list here and make sure everybody knows everybody. Actually, why don't we just start here at the very end and ask you guys if you could just introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about what brings you to our panel today. Denise, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Denis Bartelt. I'm one of the founders of Startnext. Startnext is Germany's biggest crowdfunding platform, and we are specialized in crowdfunding for creativity, creative industry, art, and innovations, I would say. And I'm here because I'm one of the first platform founders in Germany, and we had a long wait till today to bring crowdfunding to the German-speaking countries, and yeah, we're in a good situation at the moment. So it's increasing, and thanks for inviting me.
Okay. Axel.
Hi, my name is Axel Pfaender. I'm the owner of a design studio, and I successfully crowdfunded a product on Kickstarter last year and was one of the few Germans who did this on Kickstarter.
Okay.
My name is Alex Saric. I run marketing in Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Ariba, which is an SAP company. Ariba's built the world's largest business network, which helps companies connect with each other, collaborate, and effectively crowdsource in the B2B world.
Okay. Patrick.
Hi, I'm g'day everyone. Patrick Llewellyn, CEO and president of a company called 99 Designs. We're a little Australian company that's kind of grown into a slightly bigger global platform. We're the world's largest marketplace for graphic design. So essentially, we connect the world's graphic designers with opportunity. We have an office in Berlin, one in San Francisco, one in Melbourne, a couple of people in Paris. A little bit about us, you know, we've got over 200,000 designers on our platform. We've helped nearly 200,000 customers get graphic design work done. We've paid out just over $50 million to our design community, all in the last 5 years.
Yeah, impressive. All right, last but not least, Shelley.
Hi, I'm Shelley Kuipers, founder and CEO of Chaordix. We're a small Canadian company, and we power brand participation. So we work with, you know, the world's most admired brands for market objectives around market insight, affinity, and innovation and co-creation. And we're 25 people. We have somebody in Boston, myself, who's based in London, UK, and then we've got 25 people in Calgary, Canada.
All right. So what brought us all here today? Well, before we dive into the conversation, we've got a video to kind of illustrate what it is that that's disrupting the world of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding as we know it.
Crowdfunding ist für mich die demokratischste Form der Kapitalbeschaffung und ich glaube ganz fest daran, dass die Crowd eigentlich das Kapital ist der Zukunft. In der Zukunft spielt es in der Wirtschaft, in der Gesellschaft, im Funding, egal wo, spielt es keine Rolle mehr, wo du im Ranking dich befindest, wie viele Mitarbeiter du hast, wie viel Kapitaldeckung du hast, wie viel Geld du hast, das spielt in der Zukunft keine Rolle mehr, sondern das, was in der Zukunft eine Rolle spielt, ist deine Crowd.
A A lot of people would say that this panel today has the best representation of the biggest troublemakers right now. You guys are very disruptive in what you're doing. Shelley, I'll start with you. This notion of disrupting the way the world finances projects, first of all. Is that what you were trying to do when you started Chaordix, is to change the playing field?
Absolutely. And Chaordix is spun out from another organization called Cambrian House. And Cambrian House was a community-based platform that funded software entrepreneurs and their ideas back in 2006. And we were offside from SEC regulations right out of the gate. And so what we did was we created a co-op so we could do distributions in a legal way. But absolutely, we were disrupting. We were in trouble.
Was there anything illegal about what you wanted to do at the beginning?
No, I mean, we didn't think that what we were doing was illegal, but the model as it evolved, and we were realizing that we were funding entrepreneurs in different markets, wasn't legal. And we were doing it from a pot of cash and based in Calgary, Canada. So. And
I know you and I had talked a couple of months ago about this process of de-risking. Kind of talk to us about that. All of you guys actually represent that, kind of taking the traditional notion of risk out of the funding process.
Yeah, and I mean, Chaordix has transitioned to brand participation. So what we do now is we de-risk enterprise decisions around product launches, and consumer insight. So what we do is we basically provision having that information on demand so that you're making decisions about the market with that information. So we're de-risking product innovation and market expansion, really. That's what we do.
And you're dealing in the world of brands, right? Kind of explain that. You're trying to take the risk out of bringing brands to the market.
Yeah, so for example, we work with consumer packaged goods companies where they have a product in the lab, they haven't yet taken it to market, but they want to have access to the potential consumers that would be using that product. So what we do is we give them the mechanism or the gateway to have access to those consumers before they launch the product to market. So they can do concept testing, they can do price sensitivities, they can do usability testing, and they do that through our platform.
Okay. Would all of you say that you have tapped into a new well of capital that had just been sitting there waiting to be discovered? Patrick, what do you say?
If the new well of capital is human ingenuity and creativity, then we certainly have. I mean, I think what's interesting about our platform is we also spun out of another company. And it was a naturally occurring behavior in a forum thread. So we actually had designers for fun who were playing a game called Photoshop Tennis, where they would essentially put a fictional brief up and then design to that and then basically vote a winner. And so it was actually a designer who said, hey, I need to get a job done for another client. I don't really want to do that. How about you guys do it for me? And if I pick one of you, I'll pay you. And they were all like, yeah, we do it for fun. We'd love to do it for money. And so it was actually this very organic in-community behavior that slowly gained momentum. And so then we had developers joining, and eventually we created a commerce platform to it, to the point where now, we've connected. I think we've paid money to 192 countries around the world. We've had customers from over 150. And so it's kind of this very global platform that we've created. And I think it's kind of plays nicely into the whole cloud mobility, what is the new workforce? I think what we see is that the people who are coming onto our platform, the reason why they're doing it is they're looking to make a connection. Small business owners don't actually know exactly where to go to find design. Yeah. And we have designers who are based all around the world who are looking for opportunity. And so the fact is there's $500,000 of opportunity right there, right now. So they come to that for that, and then they make this lasting connection. And so it's kind of neat to see this happening on a very flat global scale.
We had a comment made yesterday about what happens in projects like yours. All of a sudden, there are all these people willing to work, and they're offering the services. And an economist asked yesterday, does that mean all of these people were underemployed before you guys came along? I mean,
Well, I think that's partly the case. I think design, if you live in a startup center or an innovation center, then there's lots of work for designers. But if you're in parts of the world or small towns in, Germany, then opportunity is perhaps not as easy to find. And so I think definitely what we're doing is making it opportunity accessible. I think too, like what we find is when we survey a lot of our designers, we actually find that they've had a formal education in something else. And in fact, design was their passion. And so mum and dad are like, hey, you've got to go and do a real job. What's this designing stuff? And then at home, they're tinkering. Everyone's now got availability to, decent computing power, good software, etc. And so they get better. And so part of it is just practicing their skill, engaging a passion. And then we get these amazing stories back where they're like, I'm no longer an accountant, I'm a designer, and I'm much more happy.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Alex, you are more of the B2B guy, right? Talk to us about how crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, how that's changing the B2B world.
Absolutely. A lot of people think of the concept crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and really think of it as a consumer phenomenon. And it's certainly very relevant there, but it's just as relevant on the B2B side, particularly now that these business networks that are just as accessible, just as diverse have come up. Just to take a couple examples from the financing side, we started talking about, we're really bringing companies together to try to get rid of these inefficiencies. Right now, we are in an environmental situation where you have many large companies that have piles of cash, but they don't really know what to do with it, to invest in a risk-free way. So they're earning returns maybe 1% if they're lucky on their cash. At the same time, you have startups that need cash but don't have access to the capital. So they can come over the network, and the company can either, for example, can go to if they have a large customer, one of our media companies is a very small startup, and they have a large entertainment company customer. There's a lot of project-based work. But they struggle to actually fund large projects because their costs are incurred up front, but they get paid at the end. So what they do is they negotiate over the network with that customer of theirs, say, okay, if you pay me in 14 days, I'll give you a 1-2% discount. That company gets a much greater return, and it's risk-free capital because they'd have to pay that supplier anyway. They pay a little earlier. The annualized rate can be over 20%, and that person gets predictable, easy access to cash. If you look at from an innovation perspective, historically, when companies would source, they would go out and tell their supply base exactly what they want. These are the exact specs, and you tell me that you can comply with this, and I want to see who's going to give me the best price, and maybe look at risk and other factors. But what they can do now is they can actually go out over the network, publish business requirements rather than the exact specification, or do both, and send it out to all the community that can actually provide that good or service based on the types of products and services they provide and they've entered in the network. And then they can actually get ideas back on more creative ways to provide them, which can result in cost savings that they can share among each other, better quality, and it also builds a much more collaborative relationship. We're all talking about collaboration. It's a great concept. But in practicality, companies still like to take out the whip and whip their suppliers to get more money out of it. But if you give them an opportunity to find a more creative way, you're tapping a much broader set of knowledge than you can possibly have inside. And at the same time, you're actually building the blocks for that type of collaborative relationship.
How much resistance do you see from companies?
So not really, not much. Sometimes people aren't quite sure what the value is, so there's some resistance. But once they come on, as a company that's trying to sell things, you say, hey, leads just come to me from companies that are in a buying cycle. There's nothing wrong with that, and I can choose to respond or not and participate in an active cycle rather than doing an email campaign or traditional marketing. So they get pretty excited. Bigger companies are happy that they automate the whole process, and they've got visibility into when they're getting paid, what the orders are. They don't have to deal with angry customers because there was an error because the order was done over a telephone. Sure. So once they use it, the adoption's great. And that's what we're seeing is a lot of the customers, both if they're selling or buying, are now big proponents for a network, even though at first some of them may have been reluctant.
Axel, would you be sitting here today if people were not willing to give a stranger money?
No, absolutely not. The de-risking you mentioned earlier, that was the essential thing for me because I had this idea to create a sound system made of cardboard that you use with smartphones, and I thought it looked really cool, and it's a fun project.
It does look cool, by the way.
Thank you.
It's a great presentation online.
But I didn't know if I was the only one who thinks it's a good idea. So by putting it onto Kickstarter, I could figure out if there's a market, if the people also think it's a good idea, and they did, and they gave me money, and so that's how I could do it.
And to tell us just a little bit, when you went online, you started asking for the money. How fast did all of this happen, just so the audience knows? I mean, you said basically, well, tell us this, if you had to go to a bank, would you have gotten any loans from any traditional financial lenders?
No, I mean, just think about it. If you go to a bank and tell them I want to build
a boombox
made of cardboard and it looks cool, do you think they gave me money? No,
yeah,
I wouldn't even have tried. So.
Yeah, but isn't that the problem? I mean, aren't you guys really are disruptors and troublemakers, because you're showing how ridiculous it is when you go to a bank and ask for money that you have to fit into a certain straitjacket before they're going to even consider giving you money. And you guys don't fit into this straitjacket, and people want to shower you with cash.
Yeah, but the thing is, why would I want to go to a bank? I mean, they would give me money, but they probably wouldn't be as such nice people to deal with as the people on Kickstarter. I mean, the people on Kickstarter, they give me money and they give me feedback and they give me motivation if I run into troubles. And if I mean, the production of my product got delayed like 6 months, and they didn't care. They said, oh, that's normal and no problem. We're looking forward to receiving it and go on. And so that's nothing you can get from a bank.
You know, these are great ideas, too, that you guys represent. What's the fear factor here that larger companies are going to want to take over crowdfunding? Denise, what do you say about this? I mean, are you guys afraid that this is going to happen?
The fear factor?
Yeah.
Yeah, what you're thinking about is how can we combine the old economy with these new ideas and to let it grow together, maybe? Because I think a traditional bank has its good reasons to stay, I would say. But if you have an idea which is hardly to explain, of course, if there is a market you don't know, the bank cannot answer these questions. No way. So you have to ask people, and normally you have agencies. They will make some requests, and I don't know what situations. But if you can ask your crowd if it's working, maybe can I get some feedback? It's totally different. And if you got positive feedback, traditional bank can say, okay, we can do something together in the future because we understand the product works and the idea of the product. I don't care how problematic this idea is, or maybe how complex it is. The bank don't need to understand how it works. Maybe they understand that the crowd likes the product and that there is a market for this. So I think in the future it should work together. And we're working on this. We call it co-funding, and we try to explain it to bank managers and stuff. And after 3 years of talking and talking, they now understand a little of that. I had a group of them yesterday, 12 people, and they were absolutely amazed by this, how it grows and what is possible with that crowd you can use for sourcing ideas or sourcing money. I think money is just one point we got, and the crowd is huge, and I think in the future it's important to have an authentic face out in the crowd, and you can do anything with that together with the crowd. So in this chance to being free from these old boundaries, I would say makes you stronger with the discussion together with bank managers or something. So yeah, I mean, you're stronger, you got a good situation then.
Yeah, I mean, it must feel good to actually sit down with a banker coming from the position that you guys come from, right?
Absolutely. You told me before that you had a better situation talking to a producer for the Boombox.
Definitely.
After having the money, of course, the crowd, and you are in a better situation.
And I don't think it's really a competitive thing. There may be cases where that's actually in play, but for the most part, I think in many places consumers have shown the way, and businesses are jumping on board and finding this is a great way that we can interact too. And whether it's a bank that's going to get involved and maybe start participating in this, I don't think they would displace it, but they may become active players in this. Or if it's someone buying or selling, people now see how easy things are as a consumer, whether you're trying to buy something, if you're trying to get funding for a business, and they go to work and it's like, well, why is it harder for me to do everything at work? And they want the same level of ease, and especially younger people are pushing their companies to kind of operate the same way. So I think in many cases it's not necessarily competitive, but it's going to show some traditional industries how to do things better, and they can learn from it.
But that's what you guys do, isn't it, Shelley? You're showing traditional industries that things can be done better. I remember reading your company said our goal is to move from 80% failure of new products to 80% success of new products. I mean, that is a radical change.
Yeah, and it's a big goal. But I think we'll do it. And, you know, when we went to market, you know, when we spun out of our other organization and went to market with Chaordix in 2009, we went out quietly and we sought out those customers that would work with us and kind of co-create our method and our process. And then, you know, demonstrate success or enterprise success through case studies that could be published and communicated to the market, so that we weren't just saying, hey, we've got this new hot thing. It doesn't, you know, we didn't have any backup to it. And I would say, you know, the kind of the project success, or what we call the community success, you know, we're hitting rates like that. In one project that we did with a CPG company, we were accessing community participants in Germany and the US, and there were women between the ages of 50 and 65. And this organization said, there's no way you're going to be able to get those participants to come online and contribute to our new product. And we said, absolutely. And when we ran that 3-month program and we said, okay, great, we're going to go back into the lab and then we'll come back out to you, they were begging us to keep the community open. They wanted to continue to participate and continue to contribute. So I think once you enable that participation and you build brand through that mechanism, you will be rewarded with loyalty, with insight, and with innovation.
Are you the 21st century version of focus groups for companies?
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, all of the large market research agencies are, you know, checking us out, trying to figure out what we're doing, because we are definitely, you know, while there's, you know, a complementary aspect to what we do, we are disrupting what they do.
Yeah.
And so we can do it faster, we can be more effective, it can be more cost effective, potentially. And then that real-time access to those stakeholders, it's harder for them to deliver that, and we can just do that through our community. Are
there sectors, certain, you know, industries where this works better than in others?
Yeah, I mean, I think consumer-facing industries are really strong, but we see, you know, talking about the banks, and we have lots of banks who have come and talked to us and said, hey, we really want to get closer to our consumer.
So they come and talk to you?
Oh, yeah. And then so we take them through the process, and we're like, well, this is what it would involve. You would have to put yourself out there. You would have to take some risks with your brand and say, come in and participate with me. And I would say, you know, that group is definitely, you know, lagging, because they're kind of going, oh, we're not really ready for that. Not sure if we really want customer insight or feedback at this particular moment. Where we have other organizations that are really dependent on distribution of products globally in different markets. They're very motivated and incented to do that. So we're seeing different markets adapt.
Let me ask all of you, is it possible that an idea that is good but needs time to mature, is it possible that if an idea is presented to the crowd too early, that the crowd's rejection of it can actually be a huge mistake? In other words, is the crowd guilty of premature judgment on an idea or a product? Is that possible?
If I can say something, I think you also have to think about that. You also have to see how the presentation is done. I mean, if you present something on a platform like Kickstarter, if the presentation video is bad, or I don't know, something, or people they miss to drive the crowd to this platform to vote or to give money for the project, it might fail, but it doesn't mean that the project is bad or the product. So, yeah, I think you have to be careful with this assessment.
Yeah, what would you say about that, Patrick?
I mean, I feel like it's kind of the same naturally occurring behaviour that we've seen for a long time. You know, if you think about the traditional route of getting funding, you know, if you went to Silicon Valley and went and spoke to a bunch of VCs, if they, one, start saying no, then it becomes almost a network effect, right? It's very hard. And if one says yes, then all of a sudden you're swamped. It's kind of like, how do you become the belle of the ball? And I think we see the same thing in the crowd. We see the same thing in our projects. What surprises us is that it doesn't really matter about how much money is on offer, it's about the participation. And if it's got some vibrancy around the participation, then all of a sudden it draws more and more interest. And you're kind of like, why are you going to participate in that? And I think it's that sense of participation that kind of drives it. So I think crowd behavior is actually the same. It's kind of magnified on these stages.
I have to ask you something too that it was discussed one night over dinner about people who get into projects like this. Would you guys describe your personalities as being outsiders? A lot of people said these guys who do this must have been nerds, because what they're doing is something they couldn't get acceptance in traditional streams, said they had to go outside, and that's where they got acceptance. Shelley, you're looking at me like, you know, bad boy. But
no, I mean that's
seriously,
what I feel like as an entrepreneur. You know, you get rejected, and you don't know if you're actually going to break through. And you know, 3 years later, you're going, wow, people are finally starting to listen to me. So I was kind of recollecting that to myself personally versus a crowd participant. But you guys go ahead.
What do you guys think? I mean, Denise, what do you did you feel like being an outsider, maybe being okay with rejection with ideas? Did that make you ideal for doing what you're doing?
I don't feel as an outsider with this business itself, but for one point, we changed the model of forming a platform. So our platform is an NGO, and we try to change the business model for the crowdfunding platform itself. That means we thought about freemium models. You can use it for free. You get the 100% of your funded money. That was the first idea, because we're working with artists and the creative industry, and they need all the euros or all the dollars. And we want to give them all of the funded money. And our model was to getting some donations from the users. So we say, if you like the platform and the infrastructure, donate to the infrastructure, because we don't want to be, or we want to be independent as a platform too. So I think the platform itself is a wonderful idea marketplace, and we try to have it free from I would say companies from the outside or investors. So I would say I'm a nerd in this way, using this business model, of course. Yeah. But I think the economy is changing in this way. So dealing with products with good karma and an idea behind the product, and people are lucky with their jobs, and so it's more important in the future, definitely, because if the designers, of course, are free to do this stuff themselves in this way, how could a company hold them into this employment, I would say. They have to give a lot of freedom, I would say, and they need to change a lot of things inside the company, how it works and how they pressure their employees. I've read an article in the New York Times today, oh my God, I would say, go and do your own stuff, and crowdfunding makes you free of all these boundaries. You have an idea, you test the market, and then you can grow with that and do it again. Your crowd will be bigger and will rise, and you can do bigger projects. You could do this, of course, because you got your first crowd, your first project, the first success, and the reputation is
yeah, well, I mean, you're right on the money there, Denise, because there's a question here for Axel. Axel, wird es eine Boombox 2.0 geben? Is there going to be a Boombox 2.0?
Yeah, there's going to be a big bad Boombox. And also like Bluetooth version. So this is not over yet. This is
just the beginning.
That's just the beginning, yeah.
You know, I used to be a business reporter, and I remember writing a lot about microfinancing in the developing world. But aren't we talking about here? Aren't we talking about microfinancing in the developed world? Isn't that what you guys are doing, either with money or with services?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think what we're seeing is this kind of a new world order of the minimum viable product. What we're all trying to do is build something and get some engagement and start to get some validation. And I think we can all do so much more with less now,
Yeah.
And so the world is becoming flatter for everyone. And I think the opportunity to be an entrepreneur is ever increasing. And I think for actually global economies to actually rise up, and even here in Europe, you think about it, we're going to have to see a distribution of work, and we're going to have to see small businesses and entrepreneurs succeed and people take risk. Well, the good news is you can take risk with a whole lot less now, because you've got all of these fantastic cloud services, you've got services like ours, but you've also got amazing infrastructure so that you can compete on a global scale without anywhere near the cost that you would have had, 5-10 years ago. So, it's just exciting. You kind of pair it up with funding, participation, services, and it's like, wow, you can be doing this from anywhere on the globe. It's time is now to get started.
Just to get started.
I think that's the point, is it's not a developed versus developing discussion. It's breaking down the barriers globally. I mean, whether it's suppliers, individuals, these networks are letting people connect either socially from a business perspective, regardless of whether it's some individual or a tiny company in South Africa and someone in the United States or in Germany. And that's really the key, is get rid of these barriers, get rid of these artificial constraints, and let the community themselves decide when they're willing to take risk, when they validate an idea or a business model.
Any questions from the audience? I thought I saw some hands raised earlier, but it was hard to see with the light. No questions yet? Because these people are so fascinating. You guys don't have... is here one? Was there one back here? Yeah, right here.
Yesterday we were talking about making things easier. And is this world now, or this method, making the world so easy that anybody can participate, so that we are going to a cooperative society instead of a market-driven society?
Yeah. Are you guys tearing down the market-driven economy?
I mean, I think, crowdsourcing has afforded democratization of many key processes, whether it's funding, whether it's collective intelligence, like Procter & Gamble getting a new technical solution inside of their business, whether it's sourcing talent that you would not otherwise be able to source. So I think it's a democratization of all of those processes, whether it's participation and access to those participants, as well as the solutions and the outputs that they're giving you.
What about the return on investment? I mean, I'll ask you, Axel, if I had given money to you to make your Boombox, what do I get?
Yeah, you get money. I mean, it's a profitable business now, so I wouldn't say that I'm tearing down market-driven society, because for me, this was a way to participate in the market, get my product on the market, and now it's...
That's important to bring out for the audience, because I think a lot of people are under the impression, and I've read this too, that people are just giving you money and they're not getting anything in return. They're just giving you money because they like your idea.
No, they give, if they gave me $50, they got a Boombox. It's a cheaper price than it's on the market now, but they get something. They could also decide to just give me money because they want to support me. Or I also had like a deluxe version of the Berlin Boombox, 2-color edition, if they gave me $100 and stuff like that. But there's a return on investment.
Do we have any numbers? Maybe ask you guys, Shelley and Alex, do we have numbers on the ROI, the number of people who just give money because they like an idea, and the percentage of people who give money and expect some type of financial reward or return on that?
Well, we don't specifically do crowdfunding through our platform, but we'll do grant applications, for example. So, the U.S. government has an aid program. They are trying to do micro investments in developing countries to make an impact versus doing broad investments that might not have an impact. And they're doing grant, so through our platform, somebody who has a potential idea can submit that idea for funding. They could be somebody who's doing organic farming in Uganda, get that funding, and then they have to close the loop and actually report back what was the success of that funding and what was able to be implemented. So that would be an example where that organization actually closes the loop. And then based on the success of that first phase, then they can apply for additional funding. Yeah.
Okay.
On the B2B side, I'd say it's not as charitable.
Right.
I don't want to say that there aren't exceptions to that, but generally people are choosing to interact because each side thinks that they're getting a better return than they can otherwise. So in the case of financing, the example is someone is deciding to get paid earlier to auction off their accounts receivable over the network to some third party that's on that network. They're doing it because they can access capital that they otherwise couldn't, or at a better rate than a bank or some other method's doing. So for them, it's great. I mean, it's a very clear ROI. The other party's doing it because they're getting a better return than they could otherwise, putting their money in some short-term security, or with the ECB, like some companies here in Europe are doing. So it's a very clear ROI that they know right up front. So it's very transparent.
And for your business, obviously, it's easier because someone's getting a service for what they're paying. So there's an automatic
we're just
return.
facilitating.
Exactly.
So we're pure market.
You're
in
pure
fact,
market,
we're kind
right?
of the opposite to, I think, the whole idea of cooperation. I mean, there's definitely co-creation and cooperation amongst the crowd and the communities that we're forming, but ultimately, I think we're all expressions of a free market. And in fact, market dynamics at their strongest, right? We're actually breaking down the barriers of regulation and
gatekeepers, right?
Exactly, exactly. So it is this. It's certainly flattening the world and creating opportunity for many, but I think it's kind of freeing it up.
Were you surprised, Patrick, that someone didn't come out with this idea earlier? Because it's a great idea, but it's also a simple idea. You're just bringing people together who need each other's services.
Well, I think the important thing that we see is ours is community. You know, what ours is a naturally forming behaviour. And so we're actually 3 years without raising any funds ourselves. So we were a bootstrap startup, in Melbourne, and we didn't spend any money on marketing whatsoever. All we did was spend our money on building the best platform and product that we could and delivering a good customer outcome and a good outcome for our designers. And so we were able to see exponential growth just based on this word of mouth and the viral effect of what we were doing. And so I think for us, that's the amazing part of it, and then allowed us to open an office in Silicon Valley, and then, obviously go on and raise money and sort of change the dynamics of our business significantly. But it was really the core part was a community, and then, trying to look after that community and foster that community and watch it exponentially grow.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, I think if you bring people or companies together and just give them the means to collaborate, just by tearing down those barriers and making that connection, great things are going to happen just by the nature of market forces and common interests.
Let me pull a couple of questions here from the Twitter wall. Alex, how is this relevant? How is this relevant for B2B? Give us an example.
Okay, I think I talked about a few of them. The example, like the traditional sourcing, if someone is going out, in the past and trying to specify the product in a crowdsourcing model using the business network, they can propose either the specific problem they're trying to solve rather than exactly what has to be provided, or give their suggestion and allow alternate bidding. So they can go out to companies that they may have never known about before. They're just notified through the network because they happen to provide a good or service that this company is looking for, and have those companies actually suggest ideas. They can bid on a specific item and give alternate suggestions. They can be more price competitive, higher quality. And they can gather this from a universe that they didn't know before. In the past, they would just invite suppliers they've been dealing with or they'd heard of before, but now they suddenly have access to a huge network. Ariba has 1 million companies in the network of suppliers around the globe they may not have known of that can come to them with ideas, and they can choose to take those and actually find a better way to design their own products or just be more efficient and save money.
Denise, there's a question for you. How do you prevent fraud activities?
It's a good question, of course. On the one hand, we try to check all the transactions and prove how the people act on the platform. What we can do is see what the people do after the funding of the project. So they work and maybe it takes longer, or they are on the island and drink some tropical juices or something. We can't check that. But what we have is in the back, the crowd, of course, which is communicating with this project starter, and the project starter is visible with all the things he do, and what we think is in the future, he's responsible for all the things he does on the internet. So you could do a fraud action one time, I would say, maybe, and the last time in this case. So we check all the people who are starting projects by ID and stuff, so that we are sure where they live and so, and before they get their money, we even know what people these are, but it doesn't say anything about the quality of the project in the ending, of course. But absolutely different to getting to a store and buying something and hoping it's the perfect product I've bought. Crowdfunding results, products are highly emotional, loaded, I would say, because I like to support a team or people who's authentic, and I believe in an idea he's translating into a product. And if this product maybe fails a bit, maybe the Boombox is a bit too small for me or something, or the red color is not red enough, I don't know. It's no worry. It's no worry, because I'm not just a consumer. I'm within interaction, and I'm a participator, and I'm following the idea, and I try to look who the designer maybe is growing with his ideas. There's a lot more things around the product, so if the product fails a little, it's no problem for me as a supporter, in this case as a consumer. And if the old industry fails with the product, they got a lot of trouble, of course. And with the social networks, they got more than trouble just because of a product fails, maybe because of the employments are underpaid or something like that.
I mean, have you had examples of fraud already?
Not yet, because we have just 640 projects completely funded with 3.4 million euros. And I think it's too early to say there can be a lot of these fraud actions. We saw some little things, but nothing really happened. So I think the crowd is a really strong and hard lawyer, of course. And all the people who have a real meaning with their project know that before, and we support them with that information. So we try to check, do they understand the process, and if they understand the process, they wouldn't do this, of course.
Well, what do you say about that, Shelley? I mean, this notion of preventing fraud, is it harder or easier to do in the crowd?
Question. I think, you know, we, in our original days, way back when, we had some projects that were funded that never got to market. And that was the early days. That was like 2005, 2006. And there was definitely some frustration by participants on both sides, one not being able to take their idea to market, and the other one, you know, you don't have satisfied users on the other side. So, but I think the methodologies and the processes and the supporting infrastructure by policy and regulations, I think we're getting there now. So I think there's going to be more success with the model today than there was back in 2006. But yeah.
Any fear of more regulation coming in on this? For many of you guys, I mean, is there a fear that the government is going to come in and try to regulate this more than it does? I mean, Alice, what do you see? Do you see that as a danger there?
Well, I mean, certainly it's always a risk. Regulation is always a bit unpredictable, and it can be populist depending how people feel. I think it's something that has to be watched out for, but for the most part at this point, I think as long as everyone's seeing the benefits and any cases of fraud or problems that come out are fairly small as a percentage of the total value, I think we'll be okay. But again, we have to monitor, and that really comes down to these communities self-policing themselves. And that's why, I mean, if you look at the consumer sites, Amazon and eBay, we don't know. I mean, there are obvious fraudsters on there, but I think for the most part, they've been weeded out just because the community polices itself. And I think on the consumer and the business side, that's just going to happen, and I think that eliminates a lot of the need for regulation. But again, you have a bad incident, governments want to react, it's something you do need to watch for.
What's the biggest mistake you've all made in this? Don't all answer at one time.
Thinking we weren't early.
You weren't early. You
yeah,
were not. Okay.
No, like when we went out to market, I was like, oh, we're not early. We're not too early. We were so early.
You were very early.
Very early.
Okay.
And we thought everyone would just get it.
And they didn't.
They didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Patrick, what about you?
I don't know, I think, so I talk about a strength of ours being this focus on product and delivering the best service we can. I think for us, it would have been useful to actually start to thinking about marketing and actually how we could proactively, distribute our product and how we could get out there. So I think we were a little bit slower on the uptake, and quite frankly, I think this is a pretty common problem. Certainly moving to the US has certainly helped us, because I think it is the land of, great marketers and great support. And so that's certainly helped us, because as you grow, you want to start to get your idea proactively out, not always relying on word of mouth. And we've had lots of failures and successes in our experimentation around that. So,
Alex, briefly, at Ariba, biggest mistake?
Yeah, I'd say the biggest is when we first created the network, it was really created as a way to drive more value for our e-procurement application for the buyers that were buying it to buy stuff. We kind of view them as the customer. And they certainly are, but I think it took us a few years to realize that the suppliers and the small companies that are, at first, were being forced on the network, they're the customers too. And you need to give them value and make sure that they find this useful for if you want this actually network to take off. And that's something that we adjust over time, and we realize we need to invest as much in making the suppliers on the other side happy, and that's going to build the overall network so that both sides are promoting it and pushing their trading partners to get on.
Excellent. Denise, you guys?
Well, I certainly underestimated how complicated it is to get a product ready for the market, and that once the crowdfunding is finished, that's not the point when you get your product on the market, but you have to develop it and do lots and lots of stuff. And I wasn't prepared for that, but I learned a lot.
You learned. And Denise?
Yeah, the biggest mistake I would say is starting so late with this great idea, and we could stay a little further now, but I think it's okay. So. No big deal.
We've got a final question, and it was a tweet. Let's see if it's still up there. For everybody, would Steve Jobs have been successful if he had chosen the crowd in introducing the iPad?
Well,
would the crowd have said yes?
Well, it's interesting. I think, Steve Jobs is known for never doing market research. And so I would say, we don't do market research. We power brand participation. I think what's very unique about Apple is there's enormous participation in that brand. I mean, you can be in a mall and it's like a church or a cult that's way down there, and everyone, there's an aura about that brand.
Right.
And I think people feel very participative in that brand. But also, too, I think Steve Jobs said, it's not up to our customers to tell us what they want. It's more about for them to tell us what they desire, and we will build what they want.
Okay.
So that's what I would say.
So what's your answer, yes or no, Shelley?
I think he did.
Yeah?
Yeah, he just did it in his own way.
In his own way. Do you guys agree?
I think that's right. The point you're making is the crowd's not always right in how to solve a problem, right? But you actually work out, does the problem exist? Does the opportunity exist? The crowd helps validate that there's something that needs to be solved, but you're not relying on the crowd to give you the solution, right? And so that's the key part to this.
Yeah.
The crowd's not always right.
Yeah.
But most of the time, we hope so.
Well, right.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
yeah, that's right. Okay, we've run out of time. Thanks to all of you. Let's give them a big round of applause. These are real risk takers out here. Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Shelley, thanks for coming on. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right. Let's